This is a Fox News alert, and the big news that we've been following for you the past hour. An American pastor held prisoner in Turkey for 2 years will soon be heading home. A court in Turkey freeing Andrew Brunson just minutes ago. President Trump tweeting, "My thoughts and prayers are with Pastor Brunson, and we hope to have him safely back home soon." Joining us now by phone, Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, thank you for calling in. This has been a top priority for you. What did you make of the news?
Well, I'm pleased. I'm not going to celebrate that he gets home. I want to thank the Trump administration, President Trump and Vice President Pence, and it's been truly bipartisan. Senator Tillis, Langford, and Shaheen. We visited Pastor Brunson months ago in Turkey. This would allow the relationship between the United States and Turkey to improve. And he's a fine man, Pastor Brunson, his wife, Noreen, and I'm just going to withhold comment until he gets home, but this is a great day, and it maybe starts a new beginning with the U.S.-Turkey relationship.
Can you say, was he simply a pawn in this battle over the attempted coup that tried to dislodge President Erdogan there?
I think he got caught up in something that was just not of his own making. I've never believed 1 minute that Pastor Brunson had any ill will toward the Turkish government. And, there was a coup against President Erdogan. The military did try to take him out, physically tried to detain him. So this is a tense time in Turkey. And Pastor Brunson's been there for over 25 years preaching the gospel. And it's a situation where he got caught up in a situation that not of his making, and it's been 2 long years. I visited him in jail. I talked to President Erdogan about it directly. I said that our relationship needs to improve, and this would be a great step forward. President Trump and Vice President Pence have been all over this, and Senator Langford and Tillis and Shaheen have been pushing very hard for a long time. And when he gets home, I'll feel better, but he's not home yet.
It sounds like you're cautiously optimistic until he actually sets foot on American soil. Senator, what do you know about the communication with Turkey to actually make that happen? What will the discussions and negotiations be to actually facilitate his return?
Well, I don't know what their court procedures are all about. I think he's been convicted and may be subject to being allowed to come home for time served. I know our embassy personnel, Mike Pompeo, has been terrific. I went there several months ago, talked to the National Security Advisor, talked to President Erdogan directly, and I know Mike Pompeo's team is handling the details, and I hope that we can get this behind us. And I told President Erdogan it would be very hard for us to move forward in a productive fashion until this issue is resolved. And Turkey is a strategic ally. It's important we have a good relationship with Turkey. They're a NATO ally. They help us in Syria, and we have an air base there. So just keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully he'll come home soon. But I know Pompeo's team, they're working hard.
The U.S. government slapped some financial sanctions on the Interior Minister and the Justice Minister of Turkey, in part as a result of the Brunson case. Would you expect those now will be dropped?
I would hope so. I would think so. But let me tell you about President Trump. He has been very involved in this. He's tried to give Turkey the space they need to get a result good for both countries. He's been very practical. He's been very firm. This is an example of, I think, presidential leadership, working with an ally over a very contentious event, trying to find the space necessary to get a good outcome, but being tough. And so, Pompeo's people are working as we speak. This will give us a new life to the U.S.-Turkey relationship.
It's been fascinating to watch. And as far as the economic situation in Turkey is concerned, we all know that has been a deteriorating situation there. And President Trump and his administration, Senator, just seem unmoved by that in efforts to get Pastor Brunson home.
They had a goal. They had a goal to make sure that this fine man would come back home. He got caught into something not of his making. And where do we go from here? If we get Pastor Brunson home, there are other people being detained that work for the U.S. Embassy. I'm concerned about them, too. We're not going to forget about them. They're Turkish nationals. There's a DEA agent. There are people still being detained, we think, inappropriately, and we're not going to forget about them. So if their families are listening, we have not forgotten about you. But how does this move forward? I hope one day to have a free trade agreement with Turkey. Their economy is in decline. It would be great for their economy. It would be good for our economy to have a free trade agreement. And that would show that we are working as a partner, as a team. But that's a ways off, but that's my goal.
There was a time that Turkey was demanding that the U.S. Extradite into Turkish custody this Fethullah Gulen, the Islamist preacher who the government there, Erdogan, considers an enemy of the government. Did that ever come into consideration, that kind of an exchange?
Well, we have a process to look at, we're an evidence-based, fact-based country, legal-based decisions, not just political trades here. And there's an investigation, I think, of the gentleman you're talking about what his activities actually have been. Have they been against the government of Turkey? Have they been criminal? So that there is an investigation of the person you're talking about, and we'll see where that takes us. But we never linked the two. That would be inappropriate. That was rejected from the start. I think Turkey understood that, and they've got a legal system. We got a legal system, and I want to just thank President Trump and Secretary Pompeo for working hard. But this is the time when Congress helped. We were pretty tough about buying the S-400 missile defense system from Russia. That they're a NATO ally. That is against everything we believe. We're trying to sell them the F-35, and having an S-400 system sold to the Turkey by Russia is a very bad situation. We've got to deal with that. But that comes later. We'll try to find a way to have a more normal relationship with Turkey.
Got to ask you, meanwhile, because Pastor Brunson's release, Senator Graham, coincides with the disappearance of Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi columnist for the Washington Post, who was inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Turkish officials say that they have video and audio evidence that Khashoggi, obviously a United States resident, was killed. What is your latest thinking on what we're learning here? Because we did not know much at first, and we continue to learn more.
Well, every passing day, it's more likely that he's dead. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure out what happened here. He goes into the consulate at about 1:15 in the afternoon, gives his cell phone to his fiancée, and he never comes out. I have reason to believe that Saudi Arabia was targeting him in the past. He's been a dissident, but in the mildest form. If, in fact, this is true, that he was abducted and killed at the direction of the Saudi government, it will destroy the relationship as we know it. I've been the biggest defender of Saudi Arabia. I've been a big champion of the relationship. I've been there many times, usually with Senator McCain. The Crown Prince has talked about reforming the country in a way that is pleasing and appropriate. But if he and others were involved in this, that would be an offense to me, to our values. It would be contempt for the U.S.-Saudi relationship, and it would destroy it in my eyes. And I would do everything I could to punish the Saudi regime if they did, in fact, kill this man because of his dissident voice. That would be a complete disrespect of our relationship, and I would want to make sure others understood who we are as Americans.
A lot of people on Capitol Hill are talking about the possibility of canceling $110 billion worth of arms sales to the Saudis. Would you go that far? The president doesn't seem to think that's a good idea.
Well, he may be right, but I don't know. I feel used and abused, quite frankly. Personally, I've stood with the Saudis in Yemen and the 9/11 actions here. I've tried to help the government. They've been a strategic ally. They help us with terrorism. They've been standing up to Iran. They've been better toward Israel. But they must be taking us for granted. To think that a guy like me and my colleagues would accept this and just go back to business as usual is completely misunderstanding who we are. Our foreign policy has a component of our values and our human rights values, and we don't believe in murdering people because they're dissident. And you have to do business with some unsavory characters in this business. But when you have an ally, you got to let them and the world know who you are. And so, from my point of view, everything is on the table. And if the Crown Prince was involved with this in any fashion, it would be impossible for him to be a legitimate leader on the international stage.
South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, we appreciate your insights. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you, Senator.